Great. Thank you so much, Odell. I hope, through the details that Odell went through, the point comes across. Next slide, please. The point comes across that, it's one thing to uh, understand the impact of an issue and its mitigation strategies, but it's another whole different level of expertise required to translate that one sentence qualitative mitigation strategy into specific action plans and multiple tasks that follow with it. And as Odell showed us through the three unique scenarios, in each case, a one-liner mitigation strategy can run into 20, 30 different tasks, and they can revolve around multiple aspects, whether it's about what if scenario planning, whether it's about changes to master and transaction data, whether it's about retraining people about a re-engineered process, whether it's about changing the system configuration, and so on and so forth. So that is where the expertise is required to translate qualitative mitigation strategies into actions, plans, and tasks. And that is precisely what we are talking about here in the MSCG methodology for agile assessment and action plan. At a very high level, we look at this into two big picture steps. One is the quick agile assessment to come up with action plan, and then the second part is to realize those action plans with the specific tasks. So I will go through them one step at a time. The first aspect, the agile assessment, requires the comprehension of the big picture issues and their impact, and that would relate to us understanding the scope and duration of disruptions, as well as the scope of recovery, and then what kind of resources, internal as well as external, available for us to put those action plans together. And some of those action plans are already in place at many companies. We are talking about the midterm and long-term action plans as well. And that will bring to the forefront the visibility for all the burning issues, a comprehensive assessment of all the issues, and then the financial and logistical impact across multiple business functions within a company. With the knowledge of the impact as well as the availability of resources, one can put together the plan, the activation of the plan, which would involve coming up with the details of the kind of action plans and tasks that Odell went through with several detailed examples. And that would require us to look at conventional approaches as well as some out of the box thinking to translate these mitigation strategies into specific tasks. And as we realize now, given that this disruption may last for a long time, it calls for midterm, long-term plans as well as with constant revision of those. On the realization part of that, to come up with the short-term, mid-term, and long-term plan, we call that as restoring to a new normal, then adapting to a new normal, and then the leading in the long-term plan. So the restoring really talks about or relates to the quick fixes and the firefighting aspects for the short-term stabilization. That can require us to do some hyper coordination with suppliers, getting the secondary supplier networks moving, revisiting our product portfolio, and so on. The midterm grouping will mandate us to look at the process ranging and change management aspects to move beyond stabilization. It may require us to revisit our procurement portfolio. Maybe it's time to look at supplier secondary vendors in alternate regions as well. And then comes the long-term aspect of it, and that would require us to revamp the risk mitigation strategies, not only update our own business continuity plans, but possibly help our critical suppliers update their long-term business continuity plans. One certainly needs to then move beyond the just-in-time efficiency aspects of the supply chains and then balance those with the just-in-case kind of resilience aspects of the supply chains, which is going to be the new normal. And how we handle that is going to be critical for the future competitive leadership in the market. The in-market for the market kind of networks where you try to now source as much as possible regionally for each region to serve the customers of those regions is going to become a crucial aspect of it. And to enhance the supply chain process maturities, all the aspects of the process supply chains, whether it's people, processes, system platforms, whether it's the policies and practices and the performance criteria, all those will have to be revamped. And that's the part of the long-term planning. Next slide, please. Yeah. Just a quick, this is where the experience of companies like us matters. We have a lot of experience in out of the box thinking and the innovations on every aspect of the scenarios that Odell walked us through. Whether it's on the demand disruption side, there are multiple things one can do. One may have to revisit different ways of disaggregating your forecast. It may have to do with for tweaking your forecast consumption strategies. Maybe a lot of your customers now may be loading up on massive sales orders as against what they used to order before, hoping that they will therefore get higher allocations than they had before. And that may require you to look at, hey, no, I can't have my regular formal sales orders forecast consumption strategy. Maybe temporarily I have to put all my customers on allocations and everybody gets similar supplies as they got same time last year, for example. Somebody who used to get 10,000 supplies may put in 100,000 order hoping to get 10 15,000 from you, but you may have to temporarily halt your normal forecasting or forecast consumption processes and put customers on allocations. One of the biggest aspects of these disruptions is the lack of visibility across the supply networks that customers have seen, and therefore having to tweak or even come up with new custom alerts or new predictive analytics and new dashboards to increase the visibility of any issues across your network. And when I say network, I mean suppliers to customers can be another quick low-hanging fruit that one can benefit from. Odell went through some great details with the hedging that we have a lot of expertise in. Maybe you have to significantly revamp your production wheel. How frequently are you going to make some products? Maybe you have gone through a significant portfolio readjustment of reducing the number of finished goods, which may also mean that you are producing some of the finished goods at a greater frequency. You may be procuring at a greater frequency. So those are all the aspects that one needs to look into. And MSCG has a lot of innovation and experience in this regard, and we can help you with that to get some quick mitigation strategies executed. Next slide, please. Last but not least, the quick takeaways for you. If you forget everything else from this webinar, a few quick things. The fact is our supply chain vulnerabilities and risk mitigation capabilities have been brought to the forefront. At least now, many of us know what was missing, what wasn't there, and those need to be fixed at the earliest possible. We also know that the bullwhip effect of these disruptions has affected the velocity of our supply chains, the variability of demand and supply across our supply networks, and also the visibility across our supply networks. And we need to get to a new normal to manage the three V's, the velocity, variability, and visibility back to where they need to be. We know that the sustained impact of this current crisis is going to depend really on how effectively we are able to flatten the curve, as they say. And that's why it may run into several months. We also know now that the priming of the pump to get all these blocked supply networks start moving again is going to be excruciatingly complex and time consuming. There will certainly be a new normal where we'll have to balance the just in case efficiency aspects of our supply networks with the just in time or just in case resilience aspects with the just in time efficiency aspects. And that will require us to have very well laid out short-term, mid-term, long-term plans, as well as sustained frequent follow-ups on that. My supply chain group has expertise, intellectual property, and methodology to help our clients with the risk mitigation and value maximization across multiple industry verticals. As I hope it came across with the detailed demonstrations, the detailed evaluations that Odell went through with the multiple scenarios. And most crucial aspect is how you manage the present crisis is going to redefine your competitive ecosystem for the future. So this is as much to be seen as an opportunity as it is obviously the problem that we are all dealing with. Having said all this, we'll be very happy to have complimentary one-on-one sessions with individual customers and to understand your pain points and to help develop the full-fledged mitigation strategies, action plans, and tasks like we have described here. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today for this webinar.